It is 7 after 6. I will now call to order the May 11th, 2015 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items? Okay, being none, we will move on to a request for determination of applicability filed by David Hardy for work at 74 Plain Street, resource area boundary confirmation and work within the 100-foot buffer zone.
Evening. My name's Mark Reed from Heritage Surveys. This is Dave Hardy, the applicant. You have the revised plan?
This is what you gave me that night.
Okay, good. Okay.
And actually, sorry to interrupt you before you go. I don't think I mentioned the meeting was being recorded. It is.
Okay. I had emailed a letter and a revised plan, which is before you tonight, dated the 7th. And I gave that to the members that were at the site visit last Thursday evening, 5:30. So the two things are going on here. Is one, we're requesting that the status of White Brook be determined to be intermittent based on a series of photos and documentation that I provided within the RDA filing. And then the observations of the 7th also being documented as no flow in the stream channel. So that's one thing. So that if the Commission agrees that it is an intermittent stream, then there is a 100-foot buffer zone to the bank of the intermittent stream, and that the proposed house and the majority of the work is outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. The only work being proposed would be the removal of about a quarter of an existing tennis court and chain link fence, and converting this area into lawn area. And because of the elevation of the existing sewer within Plain Street, a service connection for the sewer to the existing interceptor sewer that runs down the brook. So it can be by gravity. Jim Gracio was also at the site visit. So that's the revisions in the letter covering that work. So that's the only work within the buffer zone. The connection to the sewer would be done during no flow period, and it would only take about a half a day to do that work, and then it would be all buttoned up. Plan shows that we would continue the silt fence around the work area to protect it and maintain that silt fence until the area is vegetated again. We have no plans to cut any of the existing vegetation down. As you can see at the site visit, there's a line of trees, mature trees behind the tennis courts. We can make our way between trees to make the sewer connection, so we don't have to cut any mature trees down. Once you get to the lower section, there's only brush and indicated by the photos.
Okay. So I have a few questions.
Sure.
And actually, the first is more of a comment for the minutes. If you're ready.
Sorry, Tim.
No?
No.
Okay.
So, the question about White Brook came up because when the building permit application was submitted, I ran stream stats from approximately the easterly property line and the watershed area, and the stream stats, 99% duration flow rate, came up that per the regulations it would be considered perennial. And then Mark indicated that it was dry which is a little surprising until a follow-up conversation with Jim Gracia, and it has to do with the soils, the superficial geology in this area, and where there's a clay layer that the water is above, and where there's deep sand where the water disappears, basically. And this is part of the area where there's deep sand, and that's why.
Right, the flow is really only during a heavy rain event. Through my observations that are filed, we had, if you remember, we had 3 days worth of rain. It's kind of hard to believe that we had rain, being so dry right now. And there was some flow on the third day, but by Monday there was no flow again.
So my follow-up comment to that would be that our findings regarding the status of the stream pertain only to the reach of the stream that's delineated and shown on this plan. And then that would be valid for a period of 3 years. My other question is, which part? That it's only
Start from
valid?
the beginning.
I called to order the meeting. 7 minutes after 6. Okay. That our findings?
That the findings.
They only pertain
And
to
this
what
is
is
what-
shown on this plan.
Yep.
For a finding of the status of the stream.
That's intermittent.
Right.
Yes.
If that is in fact the consensus of the commission. And I believe that the information that's been submitted meets the criteria of the regulations.
Okay.
But that would be from flag. I'm waiting for some signal.
I started bank B1
Yep.
to B8.
I just want to get into You're actually quite good typing.
Thank you.
From back to one to be.
4 years of instant messenger in college.
Moving along.
If the commission concurs, the finding would be that, or this finding would only apply.
To flags.
Hold on.
The area between.
He picks it up later, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Just get the important stuff in there. B1
Yeah.
through B8, parentheses, end of series.
And you said for 3 years?
I'll let you catch up.
Cut it.
Okay, and that finding is only valid for the period of the determination of applicability, which is 3 years. So after that, or in the surrounding area, it would have to be revisited
If they choose to do so.
if someone chooses to do
Right.
something.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. My next question is, I roughly scaled off a reduced scale plan. Is that about a 10-foot wide work corridor?
I gave it a 15
15? Okay.
because we're gonna have to have a small excavator in there.
Mm-hmm. Get to work next week. Okay. And what depth do you have the sewer connection?
Jim estimates that the sewer is down about 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet in this area. It's a 14-inch pipe. It's a 14-inch AC pipe, and we'll come into the top of the pipe.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
mhm. So,
So the sewer's present here and
No.
he's just connecting it?
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
This is an interceptor sewer that comes from a section of the plains. There's a sewer manhole actually right in the middle of the brook here, and there's one that's just outside of the brook on the other side.
And the road's real high. The road's real
Yeah, it
high.
really
Drop
drops
off.
off.
Drop compared to-
Right, there's a difference in elevation from the road of 100 down to the stream channel of 79, or 78 roughly. So 22-foot difference.
It's
in
like 10
elevation.
feet difference between the house and the road in elevation.
And will the city be performing the connection to
Yes,
intercept?
they're doing the actual connection.
So if there's damage, the city will deal with the damage to the AC pipe.
Right.
And that's not on you guys. Okay,
Right.
so I think it's important to differentiate or note that in the.
They're actually gonna run up a little bit too, right? I think Jim said.
Towards your house.
Right.
Right, they'll make a connection.
So we're not gonna actually dig to the pipe. I think he was talking 20 feet or something.
Yeah, the city would
The
take
city
care of
was
it.
gonna do.
Okay.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions?
Most of the site where they're down here is pretty level where they're digging. It's only this hillside, so they should be able to control the rain if we ever have any.
So I think you noted loam and seed.
Yes.
And would, the timing of it would obviously be important relative to getting stuff to grow. So if the work were to occur toward the end of the growing season, would you use an erosion control blanket to stabilize the slope?
Mhm.
Or, okay.
Well, yeah, we're hoping, and Jim's looking at it, that we won't even have to touch the, near the bank.
Well, I'm more concerned
And
with the
up here.
slope above the
This area
bank.
here,
You're
right?
gonna trench through that hill.
Trench through that hillside, yes. We'll mulch it, we'll do whatever
Okay.
it takes to stabilize it. The ideal time, of course, to make the connection at the pipe is when there's no flow, of course, but that's not when you're gonna get seed to grow,
Right.
so, so,
Although we might try to make the connection relatively quick, just to get it up
yep.
and get it to the house, and then we don't have to do anything back there.
Well, the silt fence,
Right, so that might be
Will stay
really
in place.
fairly
Right.
quick anyways.
Mhm. what is your anticipated schedule for work?
Can you sign the building permit tonight?
Tomorrow. I have an August 14th closing,
Okay,
so
so,
we're gonna move along pretty quick. We'll probably close up the upper section with the silk fence. I know you have it drawn open,
Right.
but we'll probably close that up even after we have the pipe in. We'll probably still close that up instead of having to run going right down.
All the way down.
and
All the way down.
as long as whatever additional measures you propose are within the, protective measures are within the footprint of what's shown, I have
Right.
no
Right.
concern
Right.
with that, more,
Well, that makes sense.
and it does
Right,
make
yeah, there's no
sense.
sense to leave it open.
Right.
Mhm.
So probably we'll put the foundation in, and then if it works with Jim and his crew, once we get the foundation in, we'll probably try to run the sewer line right away.
Right, okay.
Get it right up, we'll close that back up, we'll seed it up, mulch it up, and then all of our work is basically outside that
Right.
area.
That's good.
One advantage is there's, quite a bit of shade through this area. So that would hopefully get some germination going too.
Are there any other questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, so we are being asked to do two things with this determination. One is to make a finding regarding the boundaries and the nature of the stream as intermittent versus perennial, and the other is with regard to whether or not the work requires a notice of intent under the Wetlands Protection Act. So I think we should take them separately.
Okay.
So would anyone,
So I'll make a motion that we determine that this area is an intermittent stream.
Can I ask about that first?
sure.
So your findings based on stream flow were that it's perennial, but because of the sediment, it's actually.
So the way the regulations are set up through 10 CMR 1058 to.
There she goes.
Walker's next. There are certain ways. So if a stream is shown as perennial on the USGS map, it's considered perennial. If it's shown as intermittent or not shown, then it starts stepping you through this process of running USGS. It's called stream stats, and basically it's a way of delineating the contributing watershed and quantifying that in terms of square miles, and also if there are stream gauging stations, or else they use regression equations. They determine various flow rates, and they're set basically threshold marks. So if you have a certain size watershed and a certain flow rate at a particular duration flow, you have to have both those things, and the stream shown as intermittent would then be considered perennial. Even if you have those things, there's another part of the regulations further down that basically allows for certain observations to be made and documented by a competent source over any 4 consecutive days. There's 4. I had 3 in my brain for some reason, but 4 consecutive days in any non-drought period. So, even in the hottest, scorchingest summers, our area still hasn't had a drought declared in the past. So it's unlikely that a drought will be, and droughts get declared retroactively, which is really helpful. So I think the findings, the data presented meets the criteria of that last part of the regulations, where data collection and observation can trump the stream stats method.
Right. And my observations were done during the snow melt.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't this past or last week or this week. It was definitely when we were having some
Groundwater would have been higher.
Groundwater was the highest. Right. Because some of the first photos was
You see
showing
snow on the ground. Yeah.
back in there. So
Yeah, and I went out, I think it was around the time this was submitted, I can't remember the exact date, and just did a quick drive-by where I think I was on Strong Street looking down, and it was dry as a bone. It looked dusty, it looked like it hadn't seen water, and Strong Street is actually upstream of the property, so. Would anyone care to make a motion? Jay, I think you were making a motion.
I was making a motion that we find that the area between the flags B1 and B8 is an intermittent stream.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And now, would anyone care to make a motion with regard to whether or not the work requires or does not require a notice of intent?
If we were to issue a negative determination of applicability, what type of negative determination of applicability would it be precisely?
Well, if we don't want any conditions on it, it could be a 2, but if we wanted to put conditions on it like we usually do with a minimum 48-hour pre-construction notification to inspect erosion
That's
control
what we
barriers,
would like
which
to
is
do
what we do.
that, right.
So that would be a 3 conditions.
All right, and so what is the finding that exactly?
So can I ask a question on that with this 48 hours? So if we were to install our silt fence tomorrow, can we still start cutting trees in the upper part?
Jay, could you get out there tomorrow?
Yep.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so just,
Okay, all right. No, I
we
just
usually
wanted to-
get somebody there pretty fast, so.
Okay. All right.
But I'll give you a phone number and
Okay, that'd be
we're
great.
going to do that, or we're going to do it through the conservation.
I'm more than happy to
Get out of the way.
take the middle.
Okay, so I'll move to issue a negative determination. Number 3, the work described in the request is within buffer zone, but will not alter an area subject protection. Therefore, it does not require the filing of notice of intent, which is subject to 48-hour notice, which it sounds like we've already got.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can you pass that back so I can write that down? And so because there are edits to the text, I will email a PDF of this tomorrow, and the original will be, I'll drop it off with Jess.
okay.
So it's here to pick up, but with a negative determination, there's no one here who's interested in it. It's not likely to be appealed during the 10-day appeal period, and you can commence work at your own risk. But I don't think there's much risk. Okay, now I just need to.
Just a major credit card, Jay.
Yep, that's fine.
Thanks.
You're
does.
Great.
Two lefties? Oh my goodness.
What's
I
that?
just noticed you both left-handed.
Somebody else is making
Can I
the
have
J
my
signature
pen
now.
Mine's worse than Jake's. It's not messier, it's just sillier.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll make those edits.
Sure.
Because I didn't accurately describe the work.
That's okay.
And we'll
Alright.
get this off to you as PDF tomorrow. And you said there's a building permit to sign off on?
Yes, please.
Oh, I forgot that, but I'm just gonna give him this one.
Hmm?
I can't remember everything. Nothing, actually. Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Anything?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're all
I
set?
got, yeah, I got one other thing to talk to him about. So.
All right. Thank
All
you
right,
very much.
see you, Dave.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, so, no request for certificate of compliance, no emergency certs. I left a message for Bernie Gall regarding our spring 2015 site visit at 37 South Street. I suggested next Monday night, May 18th at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
We could always make it 5:30.
I'm out of town.
You're out of town, so
What's the date on that?
May 18th. We also have a meeting that night to get 2 meetings into May because the 25th
okay.
is a holiday.
Where's our list of scheduled meetings?
It's
On the interwebs.
Is it
on the
web?
it's on the interweb, and it's also on that little blue thingy.
All
I'd offer it to you, but I don't think that would help anybody.
Please don't take that out right now. That's properly. I would be very upset. And then you'll. Actually, while we're doing this, I'm just gonna get. Rich, can you sign in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So would that conceivably work for you Monday before the meeting?
Yes, it does.
Dan, could that work maybe for you?
At what time? 5?
5 or 5:30 or 5:15
Might be
Too
better.
far away, so.
But yeah, okay,
theoretically.
we'll make it work.
It's not gonna be in Peabody.
Not that day.
Okay, so I will follow up on that message.
Okay.
Compliance updates, active projects / open permits. Mount Tom Estates, no updates. Paul Street Extension, Jillian Estates.
Hopefully within the next month or so, no, less than a month, they're gonna be building another house within the buffer zone, so we'll start doing inspections again. But no work has occurred in the buffer zone.
I just signed 2 building permits today.
Oh, well then it's
One of
sooner
them,
than.
one of them I think was a building permit that we already signed, but I think he misplaced, so he's getting it re-signed.
Okay.
So, and I don't know what the other one was.
Okay.
So yeah, it'll be
So
imminent.
could you remind him the,
Yeah, no, I already have.
you're already all set?
Yeah, I already have. I reminded him that once he starts doing the work in the buffer zone, that I'll have to start doing weekly inspections.
Great.
So Melissa, you may receive an email about signing off on the building permits.
Okay, great, thank you.
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so construction is expected on 1 or 2 additional residences?
I believe one is gonna be in the buffer zone, and one is outside.
Okay,
One is on the left-hand side of the road, which is out. And one is at the cul-de-sac.
Which is in
Just-
the way.
Right, just beyond the stormwater leaching system.
one of the lots on the closer end has a hole in it. It looks almost like a big test pit, and I guess I don't know, just check on that.
Okay, I'll look at that.
Okay.
Huh. I know he had some trees there, shade, or he was storing some shade trees, street area. Maybe he.
Yeah, it might be just after that, like
Okay.
in between that and the first house that.
Okay, I'll look at it.
Pleasant Street Mills,
We're in the process of pulling contracts together, so once I have a more clear construction schedule from the contractor, we'll be in touch about 48-hour notification, and we'll have you come out and look at the erosion control measures.
Wait. So we're getting rid of, is Glendale, West Palmer, Meadow intersection, all that closed up? Can I get rid of that?
No, it's not. They haven't come for a certificate of compliance.
Oh, did we just skip that one?
No, it's
it's
fine.
the next one. But it might not be there.
Okay.
In a different order.
Were they out of order?
Yeah, they're out of order. You're out of order. So what did we just talk about with Nashwaning Mills?
Pleasant Street Mills.
Yeah, I think you skipped.
A was Mount Tom, B was Paul Street.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
See,
Yes, I'm back. I am back.
So we're in the process of doing contracts. And once I have a construction schedule, we will notify the commission within 48 hours so you can inspect the erosion control measures.
oh gracious, okay.
So actually, I didn't have to write anything new because that was all I'm going to be saying.
There we go.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Good
Glendale,
story.
Gladville, West Pomeroy Meadow, no further updates.
They're requesting to remove the hay bales so they can, clean up the
okay.
project, so that
Okay.
was from today, so I don't have any concern about them
There's that much
removing.
water there right now?
Yeah, it seems like there's water, I don't know where it's coming from.
It hasn't rained.
I know, it's not sure.
That's not a great, I think that's actually, can you flag that as a follow-up question for Jim Gracia? That,
Okay.
there's,
So wait, who's requesting removal of the hay bales? Mass DOT, the contractor?
Yes.
Mass DOT?
They want to, so they can close out their project. They want to clean up the
Yeah.
hay bales and silt fences and all that, and reseed things and be done with it.
did you
Yep.
happen to look at the area on the downslope side of
Yes.
West Street?
Yeah, so that looks okay also.
Okay.
But it looks like there's enough grass growing there
Yeah,
to hold things together.
I would agree. I would agree. And to intercept whatever might take time
Yeah,
to spread out
I
in
don't
that
know what the
footprint.
where the water came from. So
But-
it's been interesting.
There's standing water in this swale, and
Yeah.
it hasn't rained in over 3 weeks.
This is along West Street on
Yeah,
the...
on the uphill slide
uphill
side.
yeah. But you'll be right
And there's
back.
water on the downhill side too.
Nice, there is. And they just put that erosion control blanket.
Yeah, that's why I wanted a picture of that, because they did that last week.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Restoring peace. Namaste.
And there wasn't water there before the project?
Well,
It was always wet. It was
it's-
always wet in there.
Right, although the uphill side, there wasn't any swale there before. So they realigned the road and dug down to create this swale. And these swales aren't designed to be wet all the time. And it's been an incredibly dry 3 weeks, and they're holding water. So it's generally a concern when stormwater features don't function as designed.
So it's okay if I tell them to...
They can
go ahead?
remove the
Yeah,
erosion
okay.
control barriers, but I want to flag that we need to follow up with Jim Gracia
Okay.
as the city's representative on the project about,
Breeding mosquitoes.
Well, that's a point too. All right, I will email them.
Somebody agrees.
somebody get their rings.
I will email them and tell them it's okay, and then they can
Okay.
take care of that.
All right, so you are saying that
Jay will
they...
contact Mass DOT.
Was that?
Jay will contact Mass
DOT, and Melissa will contact Jim Gracia.
Lose brain. Okay. Let's see when we can move on to the next one.
Okay.
Okay. I have not heard back from 15 Cottage Street regarding status of construction, weekly reports, or the absence of protective measures from the inlet of the direct discharge.
I did notice today that the white pipe that was in there, I didn't see it, I only drove by it, but that white pipe that was in there didn't look like it was in there, so I don't know if something, but there's still no protection around that hole. And that's a direct runoff into the little river.
Yeah.
So the status weekly reports, erosion control.
Erosion control / BMPs at inlet to direct discharge.
And people are basically driving over it now because there's nothing there, so it's just
Yeah.
a parking lot.
It's a very old, like, we'll call it a design.
Okay.
Okay. Nashwanik Pond Promenade Park.
You should be up to date with all of your
You are?
weekly.
And progress is progressing?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks
I'll
nice.
put that in,
Thank you.
quote that in here.
Schedule completion date?
June 29th?
No.
Midnight?
Supposed to be done by June 1st.
June 1st.
June 1st.
It's
Goodness.
aggressive.
Goodness gracious.
You can put that in there too.
Don't even.
Okay. No further updates on the Oxbow. Need to follow up with Terry Smith. Brickyard Brook Conservation Area, we got a weekly report. When they're done with that stone apron,
Correct.
is what you called it.
Right, they did, that was today, they did all that.
Okay.
Work there.
Thank you.
Right.
Looks
Oh,
looks
wow.
real nice, so
Right.
the water that usually runs down the street will run into that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that paved waterway
Yeah.
and then into the riprap channel
Mm-hmm.
and be controlled so they won't have any more erosion.
Great.
The next phase of the project is going to be what they're calling Mutter Field
Mhm.
recreational area that was approved through CPA. Excuse me. And so we like to close out this notice of intent because you can't have two running at the same time.
Overlap geographic footprints.
Right, and then we'll file another notice of intent for that. There'll be a small parking area off of East Street,
East Street.
and then trails through the area.
You may have to repeat yourself.
That's-
Oh, we're talking about-
Oh, yeah, sorry, oh, sorry. There it is.
The pictures. Pictures. So,
So that's the whole thing down to the.
under Brickyard Brook,
Well, hold, yeah.
I'm just telling you where we are. It's good.
That's great.
So this project is complete, eh? Nearing complete, still
Near, you have one thing left to do is put some stone between the roadway and the beginning of the wood chip path. It's the only thing they have left to do.
And then you're saying they intend to close out this end of the project, this notice of intent,
Right.
and that it's likely that a separate notice of intent will be forthcoming
Correct.
for the East Street / Mutterfield end of the project.
Correct.
it's
And I'm hoping that I'll have the request in for your next meeting, which will be next Monday. Just the paperwork in,
Okay,
and then you
that's
can
okay.
act on it in your
The next one
your
would be June 8th.
Your June 8th meeting,
Mhm.
act on it then.
Okay. Which actually gives us a lot of flexibility in scheduling our site visits.
Right.
We don't need to put that in here.
No.
Okay. I'll put that in here.
Oh, so you're caught up at this point?
I guess so.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Appreciate you sticking around.
Yep.
You okay there?
Good.
James LeGrand?
I did not go back down there to see, he called you or.
Good
I
night.
haven't received any
Okay.
calls.
See you, Mark.
Right, Mark, thank you.
I thought he asked if he could remove the silt fence or something, but
Did.
he's probably got a grass seed down for almost 2 weeks now, but I can take a ride by this week.
Okay. So, Town Beach, Nashwanik Pond Fisherman Access Facility. Here is the copy to be, I could have brought it all the way over. Copy to be recorded,
Okay.
and the copy to send to DEP.
Okay.
Thank
And you
you.
have a copy for your
And I have
file.
a PDF, I'm gonna hold off on a paper copy until we can put a recorded copy in the file.
Oh, okay.
That way it's just less paper
Original goes to Terry, right?
after it's recorded. Actually, the city,
Oh, it's
no,
mine.
it's yours. It's a new binder. I left you room on the poster. Okay. So, general business. Draft local wetlands protection ordinance. We haven't talked about your comments, so we'll talk about your comments and.
Some other day.
Yes. Monday the 18th. Manhan, same deal with Manhan Rail Trail. Please tell Barb I should just get together with Barb.
Sure.
Borchowski Conservation Property, microburst damage cleanup.
I'm talking about.
Yeah, please come up, introduce yourself.
I'm Rich LeBar. Rich had significant involvement in the trail system originally. Michael first did some serious damage. You did this incredible map. You just got.
PVPC.
It's a little incomplete, but so this is Cottage Street,
Okay.
Borkowski's property, beginning here. I think this was the Rocky parcel, what it was called. So the worst damage is, as you can see, going up 141.
Okay,
It's just, this trail's completely gone. This is
okay.
that little pond that's up in there, if you've ever been in
Kind of
there.
see it when the leaves are low.
Yeah,
Well, I meant from 141. Is that what you can say?
that one I don't believe you can.
No, I'm
There's
thinking one
another one
further
lower.
down.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So the damage is kind of, it just keeps going, but it gets significant here again. This is
So
kind
it
of
eased up here?
yeah, this is a higher spot.
Oh, I see, okay.
It follows the conifers a little bit too. But
Okay,
there's been significant activity reclaiming the trails,
okay.
unbeknownst to me. So it looks like all this is gonna get reclaimed, all the way up.
What do you,
By whom?
by what, in what
By-
way?
And when and how and,
It's nearly open.
Does that mean somebody went in with a chainsaw?
No, hand saws. So the big stuff is still there, but it's not intimidating. I was in there Saturday,
okay.
so I'd be willing to actually cut it, and I feel
So,
comfortable doing it.
okay, and that's great. The one, so shortly after you guys cut the original trails and did the original work, the natural heritage rare species mapping
Mhm.
just encompassed this whole area.
Yep.
And so we need to run the major trail reclamation by them. So that we're not, the city doesn't run afoul of the Endangered Species Act regulations in the state. And getting all, kind of approximating the center line for these trails and showing where the damage is
Mhm.
and then where the, describing kind of what type of cleanup needs to occur and how it will occur and what will be done with the woody debris is the sort of information we need to convey to natural heritage and say, do we need to file formally with you guys or, are we okay as is? And it is very likely that they will say we need to file. So we need to keep that in
Yeah.
mind before proceeding with any more work. And I know you didn't have control over the work that was done. And I'm just wondering how do we make it known that it's not the same regulatory environment as it was when the trails were first blazed?
Known to the public.
Yeah, because ultimately.
I don't think you can.
This isn't a group or a club that's doing it, there's no...
No, it's individuals who are trail users,
Right.
essentially.
Okay.
Is it mostly bikers or is it just not?
Mountain bike people?
The people that I know, yes. I don't know if there's anybody else involved,
Right,
but,
okay.
and
I mean, I think there's been some trail runners use it too. Because I think
Yep.
that's what this is. This
There's
is.
people who live off Edric Street who walk up there daily.
Okay.
So this stuff's all gone. I mean, this is just completely demolished. Look at, yeah, this whole section. Because this trail continues out in this direction and comes back.
So,
So this dead ends out in this area. So
And
that-
there's that dead end up there too.
that's a log cabin.
Oh, I mean,
The
the
trail.
trail. Is it basically done there because of?
There is an old road that passes through, I would say, in this area. It goes out to Southampton Road.
does it skirt that huge wetland at the top of Mount Tom? Because there's that,
It is,
there's that huge
It's
wetland area.
this side of that.
Okay.
Well, this side of that. Well, it's it's that last pull off on the right as you pass over the mountain. That's the log cabin. It's that last little dump.
And then there's that huge.
The place where
yeah,
people like to dump all kinds of stuff.
Of course.
You go in there, it comes right through. It's wildlife management. Mass,
Mass fishing game.
yes, thank you.
Is the trail
DFW.
passable to that road at this point, or they haven't graded that section?
This section is all the way down to this area. Well, you could easily hike it, which I did, but I had a bicycle with me, so it's nearly open. Because the damage is minimal till you get down into here, and then there's significant big oaks.
This is the Rocky parcel?
No,
Is
that's,
that, no, sorry.
It's lower.
Which is this?
This shows it, I think.
Catherine's Slave?
Should
Excuse the coffee steamed.
Root, sorry. I
That's
think
the
Rocky
dam.
Slave.
That's Borikowski's, that's the Rocky parcel.
So this
That's
is,
right there.
so then there's this, I'm sorry, I need to slow this up. Okay, so Rocky is that way.
Correct.
And that's not, so basically in this area, Conservation Commission is only concerned with the Borikowski, right, Jess? We don't have,
There's two, you have jurisdiction to two properties, and then DPW has jurisdiction here, so,
are we here?
yep, that and this is Conservation Commission,
Okay.
that's DPW. So this technically is water, it was
Supply.
purchased with water, drinking water supply grant money, so it's to be used to, that land is to protect water supply, and there's, I'd have to go back and look at the CR that's associated with it, but I'm not sure if there should be any activity happening on it,
Yeah,
based
so-
on what the CR says.
Right, so
So that's,
So-
so that's.
that leads up to my question that I asked you previously. That yellow line is a trail that I would like to do. Because it's essentially, it just doesn't, these red lines, I'm not sure what they even are, maybe the old roads that were in there. The trail goes in, it loops around, and basically dead ends in this area. So that's the trail I'd like to do. This family I know, and they're fine with it. It's,
So it's this permission and this permission,
correct.
and that's not this commission.
DPW's, Joe Pip gave me a verbal okay, but,
We might want to double check the CR.
yeah, I'm not gonna do anything
Yeah.
until
So
I'm sure it's okay, but.
So this parcel here, there's hardly any, I guess I need to.
Yeah.
So, does any work need to be done on this parcel?
No, because
Sorry about
it's
that.
unusable.
It's unused. Okay.
It's like there's a line.
There's
here
too much
that-
heavy damage there,
Essentially,
basically,
yeah.
and you're not going to try to reclaim anything that went that way.
No,
Okay, so it would just be, I'm trying to start to craft in my head the geographic constraints of the next correspondence with Natural Heritage, and when Jess comes back, I'll ask her if we have this.
do they need a guide? Do they need somebody to,
They won't come out here.
okay,
They're in Westboro.
they'll do it this way?
Yeah, which is one of the reasons we wanted to get this piece rolling, because it would facilitate communication. And others, because we just don't have a feel for the trails on the landscape.
Yeah.
So I'll ask Jess.
Coming back to Kyle's for this project.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Send mail. You brought that on. So, do we have this as a PDF?
Yeah.
And if we don't have it in Concom email, then we can get it from you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is basically the same sort of map. This is the Stewart version of the same map. Catherine Root, Rocky, and here are each of the CRs. So 6169-2 is this one. Grant to the Conservation Commission, there's no conditions in here.
And yet the damage is so
This is-
extensive on the
this is
root
Captain
parcel
Root.
that there's not going to be an effort to reestablish the trail through the damage.
So then, 7-1, Rocky. Providing and promoting exclusive and perpetual protection of water supply and water quality in the Hendrick Street wells, and to provide for the conservation of soil and other natural resources. Doesn't necessarily say people can't go on it, but its intent was to put a CR for the purpose of providing and promoting exclusive and perpetual protection of water supply and water quality. So I think that it seems to me that there should be some confirmation that whatever trail system may end up on the rocky
Right.
portion, even if DPW, if Joe Pip, even if he gives you the verbal
Yep.
okay, I'd want something in paper. I don't do verbal okays.
You're not okay with verbal?
I'm not okay
I don't
with
see how
verbal
you
okays.
can, really.
So,
I get it.
I am, so something would need to go through the Board of Public Works, some official discussion, and, I would
That's what I
think-
expected you to
Yeah.
be doing, and when you
Yeah,
said it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
a problem,
No.
all right, see where this goes.
Yeah, so I think it would go to the Board of Public Works, and I would suspect that staff from the Water Department would have some comment on whether it is or not
Sure.
impacting, and
Yeah.
putting some conditions or regulations in place.
Yeah, the type of trail
Something.
and what the trails use group would be.
Right, exactly. And just back up, so there was a vote at town meeting in 1994 to purchase the property and to restrict the use of such land pursuant to the Aquifer Land Acquisition Grant Program. So there may be some,
What would,
and then here's the map that goes with it. The purpose of this acquisition is for water supply protection pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 39, 41, and 158, and Article 97,
Ooh.
and the amendments of Massachusetts. Well, we're not gonna take and build a school on it, so, I mean, we
No,
could
but it
still,
could
Article
be,
97.
it could still be a change in use.
Aquifer land acquisition filed notice to the town of Easthampton Board of Public Works is required before any portion of this property subject to the conservation restriction can be transferred to a different ownership or control. So I think that the best process would be for whatever trail systems get placed on here, that it goes through the Board of Public Works process,
sure.
and they officially vote on allowing the trails on there and determining whether the new trails have any impact to perpetual protection of water supply and water quality, and making sure that there's no issues there. Because we love our water.
It's the best in the world,
It's the
country.
best in the country.
Maybe not the world, but the country.
And then this one,
This year.
the CR is for the promotion and development of the natural resources and for the protection of the watershed resources in the city of Easthampton. So to some extent, that should be part of the thought process as well as protecting the watershed within this area.
Nice.
So
This is-
whatever,
This is all steep over here too.
right,
So it's essentially a
That's-
side hill trail.
that's what
So-
the CR says.
175.6, is that, that's not the page. That's-
No, that's my part that I have,
Oh,
I'm trying
okay.
to, so it would be easy for me to
I
find
see,
them. So those are the parcel IDs, but I can give you the working page. It's right on here. 5915 306.
Good.
And there is an error on the CR that it should be page 189, not 188.
Is that plan book?
Yeah, so Plan Book 186 and then 189, which is
So this,
this, that goes with it.
this parcel that's in the 61A or,
It could be, 61A.
Okay.
Just a conservation restriction, is that what
The
that is?
No.
61A is, no, that's a
chapter.
it's a
It's
chapter
an
land.
agricultural.
So if they ever decided to sell it, the city would have the right of first refusal to purchase it.
So who would oversee the, I mean, the family was, I talked to two of the family members and they were fine with it.
Again, I
But
think,
they don't,
Does
I like paper.
Department of Agriculture run a
So-
Chapter 61 program?
Well, it depends on what 61 it is, if it's 61A, 61,
really,
61A, or
I should've
61B,
written
and
it
they're
down
three
here.
different things.
Yeah.
So the 61's gonna have a forest management plan attached to it. 61A is the agriculture, and the 61B is recreation. So
I think
there's.
that's what it is.
Okay, so there would need to be some, I believe there's a plan that needs to be filed with the state so that they can get the tax break for being in the 61B.
I see.
So there should be some formalized plan saying what can and cannot happen on the property, and if they're fine with the trails, then, they just want to make sure it's not going to impact their chapter status,
Mhm.
that's all. So, okay.
Okay.
So what's the plan here then?
The plan here is that with the information that Rich has provided,
So we're going to take the PDF and then I mark up the PDF itself with commentary?
Mhm.
Okay. This is great, by the way, having these lines of the damage.
yeah, can we borrow this?
Ooh.
It's a little more widespread and a little hard to get it on paper.
Mhm.
I mean, when you're in it, try to get together with Pat Brough and do a drone thing, but
Didn't panic.
he's too busy. I mean, it's difficult between the weather and it's either too windy or
Okay.
you can still do that, but
Can we hold on to this for a little while, at least? And that way we can mark it up based on your sketches. And then email Natural Heritage and see what our next step is.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
No problem.
this is
I like going out there.
tremendously helpful.
it's been, I would like to see it open up again.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's,
And this is the after workplace.
yeah, it's practically in your backyard. Much easier than going to Hadley. Did you ever run with man? Can I still? Oh, no, it's okay.
I wasn't using one.
I have a paper clip. It'll work just as well.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
So,
So what's a good, is there an
sure.
email for you?
Sure.
Okay, what is it?
It's BLR 0, it's Barb's, BLR00@verizon.net. I don't know why she put zeros in there, but that's confusing.
Okay,
I don't know if those work or not, but.
perfect.
So I'll just watch the minutes? I mean, the agenda, that's what I mean?
Yeah. That, and now that I have this email for you, I'll
Yeah, if I could do
keep
any,
you
yeah,
apprised of,
contact me anytime.
yeah, great.
I know this is gonna take some time, so.
Being patient.
Yes.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
Really appreciate your help, Rich.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So, 7 o'clock, let's finish up quickly. Can we finish strong?
I want to hear about the orchard walk.
I do too. Who was the orchard? Tell us about the orchard.
It was lovely.
It was pretty cool. There's some crazy something berm there that's undetermined what the origin of it is.
Like really grown over, been there a while?
Multiple berms in a white pine forest.
Piled
Oh,
stones.
That, like-
you guys went way back there.
Yeah, they went way
Yeah.
back. I've seen
Gave
it
you
before.
the grand tour.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
really cool. So according to Colleen's plant survey, she thinks that she determined that it was a wetland. I don't know if we need to do any more to
At this time,
verify that.
we need to find out what's going to happen up there before we need to, more extensively or formally delineate the resource area boundaries.
So the request from Ben and Libby is to, Ben Lesko is the one who came
Okay,
and requested,
and
and Libby is
Libby-
just another community
Garden
member.
person.
So they want to prune the trees and just hopefully bring them back to health.
And it may only be the trees that are near the gardens now, not, there's many trees that go back towards the woods and the pines, and I don't think they're looking at trying to do 60 trees. I think they just want to prune 5 or 6 that are near the garden and see what happens.
So the 5 or 6 that they might want to deal with near the garden, where are they in relation to the wetland?
Right, they're within 100 buffer zone if it is in fact
Okay.
a wetland. So there are ones further away from the road that are definitely outside of the 100 foot buffer. So it seems like if they just want to do a few, it's feasible.
Do they just want to do a few, or do they want to do a few that are right next to the garden that,
Well, here's a question also to think about in terms of, I know that Russell and Elaine from Park Hill, they've expressed concern about the trees there providing diseases and pests to their crop. And
Right.
so, I think that there should be some thought and consideration of what's the process if the commission wants to remove the remaining trees there because they're going to be very difficult to bring back. They're a variety that's not that great. It's not like they're some heirloom variety apple. They're a commercial apple that, it's going to take a lot to bring those trees back, is my understanding from talking to a couple people. So if the commission decides they want to remove the remaining trees and they're in the wetland buffer, what's the resolution there, So I'm not saying there needs to be an answer right now, but there's just a conflict there between the two things.
right?
One being having apples or trees that can cause pests and issues for adjacent properties versus wetland regs. So that's all.
Right. So the land is not in agricultural use. The abandoned orchard has been fallow for far more than 5 years.
Yes, that's correct.
And so any alterations within 100 feet of the wetland resource area boundaries, whatever those may be, are subject to Wetlands Protection Act.
The wetland boundaries are not super clear, but there's not like, skunk cabbage and things that are very,
Did you look at soils?
No, I mean, I really don't. I think she saw like a sedge and something
right.
else.
Okay.
Just wasn't blatant, but
Yeah,
the
there
ground
wasn't
is wet.
standing water.
Right, there's a
You know.
seep.
Yeah, it flows down the hill.
And you could definitely see it, and there are apple trees that had died in the path of
Okay.
where it is.
So what I'm getting is, and I understand Park Hill's rights as orchard operators adjacent to and the threat. So I guess what it comes down to is, how do we coordinate? I guess we need to coordinate with them. Do they want those trees removed?
It was interesting because they both expressed this concern. I guess Elaine particularly expressed the concern about disease getting right into their trees, and people have come in and told them that
Everyone
that's
who comes
the
to their
source.
orchard says, you gotta do something about those trees next to you.
But at the end of the visit, Russell was like pointing to those trees that were right in the buffer zone and saying, and what he said was if you were to prune them back successively over several years, they would come back to health. It seemed like he was in support of that.
But
at
who's
the
going to
end.
do that? I mean, it's the city property, are we,
And that's where we always end up every time.
Right, so, I mean, just to give you some sense that there is a small pot of money that was a fundraising effort as part of the Ecodale purchase that can only be used for Ecodale properties. And part of that money was already used to develop the community garden. So, if the commission has a recommendation of what they'd like to do with this property, it would need to go through the proper channels and be approved by the mayor for whatever idea that you have. And then, if it was a matter of taking the trees down or whatever, that could be paid for out of this account, however much that would cost to do. So I just want to give you some indication that there is this pot of money that exists to maintain these properties, and no money has been expended out of this account except for the community gardens.
I think Ben was just gonna
So-
volunteer to do some of the pruning on the 5 or 6 trees.
Yeah.
But then we get back to the procurement issue, right?
Right, so, I mean,
RFP, and it kind of dies there.
right, so there's also public procurement, so if there's been multiple parties that have expressed interest in trying to bring the orchard back to life. Now, look, I'm not one who does trees, but I've heard various things. It could take up to 10 years for those trees to be productive if you prune them correctly. And then what do you do with the fruit? It's the city's property that is managed by the Conservation Commission, so, is that fruit,
Whose fruit is it?
whose fruit is it, is it?
The residents of Easthampton?
Is it, well, my big grand idea has always been, wouldn't it be great to have something up there that produces a crop, that a portion of it could be donated to the community center for their food pantry, and then, whoever is the one who's doing the work keeps the rest of the crop. I've had some discussions with Rick Tufts, who's, he's the treasurer for the community garden. We're just brainstorming ideas, and one of the ideas was, some sort of permaculture or doing crops that aren't going to compete with Park Hill. So whether it's like pawpaw trees or gooseberries or things that they're not currently growing, because we don't want to necessarily be in competition with them, but have like a demonstration area to show edibles, wild edibles, whatever. But again, it comes down to the maintenance. It would be, we would have to do a RFP process. We would have to say that this land is available to be pruned or leased or cut or whatever you decide, makes sense, has to go through a public bidding process. So you can't just give it over to Ben and have him trim trees. Even though he's the one who showed up to the meeting, it would have to go through a public process. And who knows, maybe Russell and Lane would even throw in a proposal and be willing to take things.
And they
over.
had a few things that, I don't know if they were just like, these are the things we've thought about. They had
Right.
different ideas for things that they wanted,
Right.
like a trail through there, a playground, making it like an educational. Elaine has some idea that she wants a playground somewhere close to her, and clearly the liability insurance is too big for them to
Well,
pay.
so the city needs to take that?
Right.
That's not the greatest place
Just
for a
to let you know.
Yeah.
She
No,
was
they're
like
just
that.
reporting. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
And Russell also talked about turning into a Christmas tree farm. So they definitely have ideas. It doesn't sound like they want to be involved with managing it as an orchard at all.
No.
One other thing that Russell did say, which was interesting, and I guess this would have to be part of an RFP if people were interested in it, is that he just gave the model of the town of Harvard has a town orchard that's town managed.
Yeah.
So I don't
But
know.
they lease it, I've looked into it, they lease it out to somebody, so they went through a public process. It's a city-owned orchard, but they have a professional who comes in and does all the work.
Yeah.
So it's a lease agreement for a certain payment and a certain amount of money to have them come in and maintain it. It's not like the tree warden is doing it or somebody from DPW or, So you still have to go through that process. But yeah, I've looked into that at the town of Harvard.
The one other thing that Russell said was that I think it was extension money. We could apply to a grant to get the trees removed if that was what
That would be, if that's the decision, then that would be great. We could apply for that grant.
And I just keep coming back to, in terms of concern about the trees in the adjacent orchard, it's been like, they've been the owners of that property for more than 5 years, and it's never been raised as we need to act on this now,
And you've mentioned it since the first day I've
they
started.
mentioned it,
So for
but
3
no
years
one
it's
has
been-
ever said, hey, we're gonna cut down your trees, because they're a clear and present threat to, and I'm not saying we don't need to act, but we
Well-
don't have the resources.
Well, I
Which is
did contact
frustrating.
UMass Extension
Okay.
about taking them down or just making the judgment call of should they come down or not, because what do I know? And his comment was if they've been out of production for more than 5 years, they're useless and you should just take them down.
they were flowering when we were there. I don't know what happens if they actually.
That might not
Were
be.
there poison ivy flowers?
Yes. It smells so good. Well, no, what I'm trying to get to is, we do have a responsibility to manage the property, and we should, and we always come to the stumbling block of
Well, I think
the
that
RFP and how to manage it, and I think,
I think the first step you need to figure out is what should that property be? What's the big picture? Should it be taken down? Should some of the trees remain? What's the vision for that property? And then once you figure that out, we can figure out all the other details. That's
so
so I think you need to stop. I think you need to pull yourself back a little bit and think about, in your opinion, what is the best use of that property given its past history, given its location, and what should be the future use of that property for the residents of Easthampton, and then we can take it from there, you know.
Does the open space plan say anything about it? Do you know?
It says that it's a priority to figure out what to do with it. And the other big thing in the open space plan is saying that the Conservation Commission really needs to focus on the properties that they are the managing entity for, because it hasn't happened.
So-
I mean, if we had a conservation agent, it would be a whole different story, but, you know, we don't.
Right, we could
So-
burden them with this.
Right, exactly, but we don't.
So from a trail building perspective, is there, do you see, based on what you saw, do you envision there being an opportunity to develop some sort of trail?
You could
Or
make
just-
a walking trail or a dog walking trail or
Yeah,
something
you
through there
couldn't do a
easily.
loop because of the where the wetland
Well, and-
is, but it could just be out into that white pine forest and back. I think it could be really cool. I think it would be really neat to have maintain some of the orchard so it's educational and so some of it goes to the community center. and stuff
So I
like
think, at least what I see before we make any decisions about what to keep and what to get rid of and how to do it, I think Colleen and I can delineate the wetlands, and we can define what those resource areas are, because I think we need to stay the heck out of them. And then that will tell us what the buffer zone is and what the upland areas are that we can start crafting this vision in. And
That makes sense.
and then take, figure out what, by pulling those pieces together, we can then see what's left. And if the trees, where the trees are likely viable and where they are compatible with the vision of a trail.
I'd be excited to work on
And finally being good neighbors to Park Hill Orchard.
Once we have the wetland delineated,
You can fill it in later.
Yeah.
There's a video.
Just being
I mean, once we have the wetland delineated, would it be ridiculous to say, could you count the number of apple trees there? Or is
No.
it too many?
No, there's like, what, 15 or 16?
No, you
You
can
can actually
really
count
do
them from the air.
Oh, it's really
You know,
not that many.
From the satellite photos, you can actually count.
So
I had like 50 or
Okay,
60 or something.
No, I think it's
No.
more like, it's under 20, right? Would you guess?
Max 20.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, do we want to do the delineation,
inventory the trees in the
inventory
orchard.
the trees, just like number, not really what varieties or whatever, and then have a meeting?
Roughly,
They're all the same
roughly
variety, I
sketch.
where the
I
trail
mean,
could go.
some trees just need to go. They're in some
Yeah.
bad shape.
Yeah.
You can just look at them and say, that's not even worth trying to do.
There's
any
also
work
a lot of
on."
invasives that would need to
Right.
get removed in there too.
But anyway, and then we do, on one of our meetings, an agenda item being,
A draft plan.
figure out what to do with the orchard, and advertise it as that or whatever.
Like
And
a
everything's
public.
gotta go through the mayor, so what the commission needs to do
Oh,
is
because-
put together a proposal of what you'd like to see there,
Mm-hmm.
and then get her authorization to proceed and move forward, and go through a procurement process. So you
Would-
need to have a plan first and have her agree to it.
And we would do that during a meeting.
Yeah, you can do that during a meeting.
So delineate the wetlands, inventory the trees in the orchard, come up with a conceptual trail design, present this draft plan to the mayor for her
Approval.
comment approval, and then,
And then from there, we can then start figuring out,
okay.
is it volunteers that are gonna do the trail building? Is it volunteers that are gonna do the invasive species? Is there grants that I need to apply for? Then we can take it to the next step once we sort of have a plan in place.
The other thing that with Ben too is that he works for Riverside Industries, and so I don't know if that's a potential town partnership.
Possibly.
If they were the ones who just
Sure,
were
sure.
regularly volunteering
Sure.
there, because that might be cool.
That would be good. But I think that would be part of the proposal also,
yeah.
yeah. If he could pitch that as part of his plan.
Okay. So.
You
Should
wanna-
ask Colleen what she's doing Memorial Day. Bustin's holiday. All right, so I'll reach out to,
Are you gonna do the whole parcel or just like the
No.
orchard area? I mean, because if we're talking about trails, would you need to go further? Or would you
You
need to
use
figure
it.
out where the trails were gonna be?
You can use
and then-
aerial photography and stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do aerial interpretation first, and then, I mean, if you could, I'll come up with an aerial, and then if you could, based on memory, sketch.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, the parcel isn't even 100 feet, I don't.
It's narrow, it's long and narrow.
Yeah.
So who owns the pine forest?
That's away from the road, so.
We can look at the GIS system afterwards
Yeah.
and we can figure that with the parcel
I
lines.
have to get home for bedtime. Okay, so with that in mind, I feel like we have some good next steps,
Mhm.
and we have another meeting on the 18th, so we can revisit this very soon. Meeting minutes approval, if everyone's okay with moving on. Meeting minutes approval, April 27th, 2015.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from April 27th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved, can you pass them over? That's it.
We also should put on the agenda that site visit that I did for Line in Phelps Street for Wemco, where we want to put that new power line in.
Mhm.
Get that on the agenda.
So that'll be the next agenda.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I'm not gonna. Chris here.
Because they want to know what they need to file. It was just the poles would be simple, but they want a trench to access the poles, so that's a bigger project.
Okay.
So, do I need to write any of that down? Wemco will be submitting something for our next meeting about something or another.
Well, they're
No.
not going to, they want to know what they need to submit. I'm sure they want to know whether they have to go through an RDA or go through a notice of intent.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think they're looking to us to tell them.
What day was your site visit?
It was the 28th, Tuesday the 28th.
Okay. So, see everyone on the 18th?
Should work.
Motion
Should
to
work.
adjourn?
Not me.
Not you.
I'm taking 36 Fifth and 6th graders to Washington, D.C. So don't feel bad for me.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
What'd you say you're taking 56?
35th and 6th.
and 6th grade.
Sounds
I
like.
hope you're not the only chaperone. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
So moved.